Imagine a world where every question is met with silence, where curiosity is a crime and the universe is a closed book. Then imagine a man, one man, who refused to accept that. This is the story of Xenophon, the philosopher who turned curiosity into a discipline, a boy who questioned everything, and the mind that mapped the very foundations of knowledge. But before we dive into his incredible journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to History Hacked. And if you haven't seen our last video on Socrates, who is the master who taught Xenophon, you might want to check that out first. Now, let's step into the mind of the man who shaped the modern world. In the golden age of ancient Greece, where warriors and philosophers shaped the destiny of civilization, one man stood at the crossroads of history: Xenophon of Athens, a soldier of fortune, a master strategist, a philosopher, and one of the greatest historians of antiquity. Xenophon lived a life filled with adventure, intellect, and leadership. His journey would take him from the battlefields of Persia to the inner circles of Socratic wisdom, leaving behind a legacy that still influences warfare, philosophy, and literature to this day. Born around 430 BCE in Athens, Xenophon grew up in the midst of the Peloponnesian War, a time of great turmoil and shifting power in Greece. As a young man, he was drawn to the teachings of Socrates, whose ideas would shape his thinking for the rest of his life. But unlike other philosophers of his time, Xenophon was not destined to simply debate in the agora. His path would lead him to the battlefield, where philosophy would meet strategy and action. The Anabasis, a journey of survival and leadership. At the age of 30, Xenophon made a fateful decision that would define his life. He joined a force of Greek mercenaries, the 10,000, hired by the Persian prince Cyrus the Younger, who sought to overthrow his brother, Artaxerxes II, and claim the throne of the vast Achaemenid Empire. But destiny had other plans. In the decisive Battle of Cunaxa, 401 BCE, Cyrus was slain, and the Greek army, stranded deep within enemy territory, was left without leadership. It was here, in the face of death and despair, that Xenophon emerged as a leader. Against all odds, he organized the famous retreat of the 10,000, leading his men on an epic journey of over 1,500 miles through hostile lands, bitter winters, and relentless attacks from Persian forces. His tactical brilliance, using strategic flanking maneuvers, ambushes, and careful logistics, ensured the survival of his army. This incredible journey, documented in his masterpiece, Anabasis, would become a military handbook for generations to come, even inspiring later conquests, including those of Alexander the Great. Military contributions and strategic legacy. The retreat of the 10,000 was more than just a survival story. It was a military revolution. Xenophon's tactics introduced new ways of managing armies, conducting retreats, and organizing logistics, setting precedents that are still studied in military academies today. His writings detailed the importance of discipline, leadership, and adaptability, influencing warfare for centuries. As historian Theodore Hérold Dodge later wrote, "The centuries since have devised nothing to surpass the genius of this warrior." Indeed, Xenophon was one of the first to describe strategic feints, surprise attacks, and flanking maneuvers, techniques that would become standard in military strategy. Exile from Athens and service to Sparta, despite his heroism, Xenophon's association with Cyrus the Younger, an enemy of Athens, led to his exile from his homeland. But fate had another chapter in store for him. He found refuge in Sparta, the very city that had once been Athens' greatest rival. The Spartan kings, recognizing his military genius, welcomed him into their ranks, and Xenophon soon became a trusted advisor to King Agesilaus II. For years, Xenophon fought alongside the Spartans, even leading campaigns against his own former allies, the Athenians. Yet, Despite his loyalty to Sparta, he never forgot his love for Athens. It was a time of contradictions, of a man torn between duty and heritage. Xenophon, the historian, chronicling the ancient world. But Xenophon's greatest weapon was not the sword, it was the pen. His historical works remain some of the most detailed and influential records of the ancient world. Anabasis, the thrilling first-hand account of the March of the 10,000, one of history's greatest military expeditions. Hellenica, a continuation of Thucydides' history of the Peloponnesian War, covering the years after the fall of Athens. Cyropaedia, a semi-fictional biography of Cyrus the Great, presenting an ideal model of leadership. Memorabilia, a defense of Socrates, preserving his teachings and wisdom. Economicus, a work on economics and household management, showing a glimpse of life in ancient Greece. Through his works, Xenophon gave the world a clear window into Greek history, politics, and military strategy, ensuring that the lessons of the past would not be forgotten. Xenophon the philosopher, a student of Socrates. But beyond the battlefield and the pages of history, Xenophon was also a philosopher. His works provide one of the most detailed accounts of Socratic thought, alongside Plato. Unlike Plato, whose works focused on deep metaphysical ideas, Xenophon's Socrates was practical, ethical, and grounded in real-life wisdom. Quintilian, the great Roman educator, once placed Xenophon next to Plato, acknowledging him as one of the great thinkers of his time. His writings influenced later philosophers, including the Stoics, who admired his emphasis on discipline and virtue.
After years of service to Sparta, Xenophon finally settled in Sillus, a peaceful countryside where he dedicated himself to writing and reflection. It was a quiet life, far from the chaos of war and politics. Though exiled from Athens for much of his life, he was eventually allowed to return, though he may have chosen not to. Xenophon passed away around 354 BCE, leaving behind a legacy that would endure for millennia. His works would inspire historians, military leaders, and philosophers alike, ensuring that his name would never be forgotten. A man of many titles. For 2,000 years, scholars have debated, was Xenophon a general first, a historian, or a philosopher? In truth, he was all three. His military brilliance shaped the art of war. His historical writings preserved the struggles of his time, and his philosophy carried forward the wisdom of Socrates. Few men have ever left such a profound impact on so many fields. His legacy lives on in the strategies of generals, in the pages of history, and in the lessons of philosophy. Xenophon was more than just a man, he was a legend. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to History Hacked. Click the bell icon to stay updated on our latest videos. And if you haven't already, check out our previous video on Socrates, where we explore the life of the great philosopher who shaped Xenophon's thinking. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring history.